Good morning, gardeners, and welcome to Tuesday, June 6th. My name is Catherine, and I created a show called Good Morning Gardeners, even though I can't grow green things because I am referring to gardening metaphorically. We're planting the seeds for a better day. We're starting our day by getting in the right mindset to cultivate a better life for ourselves, better communities, and a better world. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to add Good Morning Gardeners to your morning routine. I do my best to wake you up with positive and mentally stimulating ideas, but sometimes I miss things. If you have something to add to the ideas I discuss, please chime in the comments section. Today is Russian Language Day. This day was established on June 6th, the birthday of the great Russian poet A.S. Pushkin, as part of the UN program to support and develop multilingualism and cultural diversity. One of the goals of this program is to maintain the equity of all 6 official languages of the UN: English, Arabic, Spanish, Chinese, Russian, and French. The aim of the UN Language Days is to raise awareness of the history, culture, and development of each of the 6 official languages. Each language is given the opportunity to find its own unique approach and develop its own program of activities for the day, including featuring famous poets and writers and developing information and thematic materials. Multilingualism is an important factor in harmonious communication between peoples. While promoting tolerance, it also ensures effective and more active collaboration, greater efficiency, and better results at the global level. So this morning, I don't know if you can tell from listening to my voice or if you're watching me looking at my eyes, which I woke up with swollen eyes today, but I am going through the worst time of the year for me, which is allergy season. It seems like it's particularly cruel because the weather has just warmed up. I love the summer. I want to be outside enjoying the sunshine, but when I do go outside, I immediately regret it. And also, I don't have air conditioning, so to a certain extent, I do have to have the windows open, at least for part of the day in my home. So it's been rough, but I know from the previous 2 summers that I've spent here, it will go away by the end of June. At least I hope so. But right now it's rough, and I actually considered skipping this video this morning, but of course I couldn't leave you guys hanging, especially since I begin prepping the following day's episode the previous day. So, that's a bonus tip for you guys today on creating habits is get started on it, and you won't have an excuse not to do it because you already put in some work. I mean, you can always find excuses, but anyway, that's a tip. So this morning, because I was suffering with allergies, I engaged in a few moments of one of my weaknesses. I have been on this show talking about deep work and the importance of cultivating, especially in the morning, a really great routine free of distractions. But this morning, as I said, I had a few moments of weakness and I was scrolling my short form videos, as I love to do. And I came across this TikTok video, which was a podcast clip from someone named Dan McClellan, who I'm not really familiar with, but glancing at his profile, it looks like he is a biblical theologian. Now, I am not super interested in this realm of study, but I did find the idea he presented in his video to be interesting, and I found it so interesting that I actually transcribed what he said for you guys, so I'm going to read that now. He said, "Dictionary definitions for conceptual categories fundamentally distort. How many times recently have we heard people challenging others to define woman? They want to distill it down to an essence, a necessary and sufficient feature, because if I can say it has to have that feature, then a trans woman who may not have feature X is now not a woman, so it is a way to structure power and values. A lot of people, when they sit down to talk about gods and the Bible, they want to define deity, but you can't define deity because once you start to, you're doing that distortion of trying to reduce it down to some kind of list of necessary and sufficient features. And overwhelmingly, people define it in ways that serve their own interests. When we rely on definitions, and when we try to reduce things down to necessary and sufficient features, we're distorting the categories. We're not honoring the use of these categories the way the authors were using them. And that's one of the problems with dictionaries, is they're supposed to be following after usage and just reporting on the usage, just to say, this is how they're using it. But we've kind of flipped that on its head. And now we use dictionaries to say, this is the only way you're allowed to use it. If you use it any other way, it's wrong. And that is putting the cart before the horse. Dictionaries do not adjudicate meaning. They report on usage, but they do so using a fundamentally distorting framework. And of course, the fundamentally distorting framework that he is referring to is words. At least that was what I got from it. And I found that very interesting, as I said, and I would like you to let me know in the comments what you think of this idea. For me, this really resonated with something that I have believed intuitively for a very long time, and that is that words are merely representations of ideas. They're a feeble attempt to translate what is really meant into something which can be transmitted to another person. Ironically, this is one reason I have no interest in ancient religious texts, because I think it's futile to derive one's personal values from mere words that, by their nature of being ancient, must be taken out of context, not to mention the various translations and revisions that play a part. But I digress. In the TikTok video I watched, Dan went on to say that he makes people angry when he says this about how dictionaries are only meant to report on usage, not control the meanings of the words. And a quick scroll through the comment section proved this correct. Some people were upset. Now, I can't know for sure what elicits an emotional reaction from every single person who is made angry by his claims, but I would guess that it's most likely because people tend to derive comfort from structure. And what structures our world more than language? So if this idea made you feel uneasy, I would like to provide a different viewpoint on this topic for you that I'm hoping will make you feel better and might even be really helpful for you. Or if you're like me and it didn't make you feel uneasy and you're like, oh yeah, that's something that I've thought for a long time, but nobody ever talks about it. And it's kind of difficult to talk about because you must use this distorting framework in order to communicate the idea. Well, then hopefully you will just find this really interesting because I find it interesting as well. I am going to read from Art as Therapy by Botton and Armstrong about one of the purposes of art. Now, according to this book, there are 7 functions of art, and the passage I will be reading is discussing the 5th function, which is self-understanding. We are not transparent to ourselves. We have intuitions, suspicions, hunches, vague musings, and strangely mixed emotions, all of which resist simple definition. We have moods, but we don't really know them. Then, from time to time, we encounter works of art that seem to latch onto something we have felt but never recognized clearly before. Alexander Pope identified a central function of poetry as taking thoughts we express as half-formed and giving them clear expression. What was often thought but ne'er so well expressed. In other words, a fugitive and elusive part of our own thinking, our own experience, is taken up, edited, and returned to us better than it was before, so that we feel at last that we know ourselves more clearly. It is a strange thought that personal identity and qualities of mind and character can be discovered not only in people, but also in objects, landscapes, jars, or boxes. If this seems a bit odd, it's because we have, by and large, emptied the visual realm of personal character. Yet, when we feel a kinship with an object, it is because the values we sense that it carries are clearer in it than they usually are in our minds. Art builds up self-knowledge and is an excellent way of communicating the resulting fruit to other people. Getting others to share our experiences is notoriously difficult. Words can feel clumsy. Consider trying to describe a walk alongside a lake on a mild afternoon without the aid of an image. Christian Kopke's unassuming depiction of an afternoon in a suburb of Copenhagen latches on to just those aspects of experience that are so hard to verbalize. The light in the picture is tremendously meaningful, even though it is difficult to say what this meaning is. One wants to point at the picture and say, when the light is like this, I feel like that. Kopke has created an image that is in love with nothing happening. A child hangs over the rails. A man in a top hat looks on while his friend makes some adjustment to the bottom of the furled sail. Oh, some women say something to one another. Life is going on, but there is no drama, no expectation of an outcome, no sense of getting anywhere. Rather than this being a condition of boredom or frustration, though, it feels exactly right. It is tranquil but not tired. It is immensely peaceful but not inert. In a strange way, the picture is filled with a sense of delight and existence expressed quietly. It is not the light in itself that is so attractive. Rather, it is the condition of the soul it evinces. The picture captures a part of who one is, a part that isn't particularly verbal. You could point to this image and say, that's what I'm like sometimes, and I wish it were like that more often. It could be the beginning of an important friendship if somebody else understood this too. Since art has the ability to help us understand ourselves and then to communicate who we are to others, we tend to care a lot about the works of art we place around us. Even on limited budgets, we spend a lot of time worrying about interior decoration, about the objects we use to communicate our identities to the world. An unkind way of analyzing our concern with how we decorate our homes is that we're simply trying to show off. In other words, to tell people how impressive and successful we are. But there's generally far more interesting and human process at work within the art of interior decoration. We want to show something off, but we're not merely boasting. We're trying to let others know about our characters in a way that words might not permit. That is why we might, for example, invest in some crockery by the 20th century German architect and designer Richard Reimerschmidt. The enthusiasm for Reimerschmidt's plates is likely to reveal more than just a desire for our guests to think that we have good taste and enough money to do something about it. Behind the liking for the plates we initially felt in the shop lay a recognition. This is the right crockery for me because it is like my deepest self. I can use such a plate to tell people something important about who I am, about what it is like to be me. Such a statement might seem rather exaggerated, but perhaps it's simply unfamiliar. We are unschooled in taking aesthetic things and repositioning them in terms of our psychological lives. We don't just like art pieces. We are also, in the case of certain prized examples, a bit like them. They are the media through which we come to know ourselves and let others know more of what we are really about. So I thought of that passage this morning after watching that TikTok video and thinking maybe I could do a language-themed episode because, language, verbal language to me, and I'm sure many others, feels so limiting. And that is one reason why so many of us are drawn to other forms of communication, which are typically labeled as art, such as visual art or even, musical art. And, the fact that words are limited, it doesn't have to be a scary, bad, or limiting thing. It's just part of the human condition. And in a way, it's an opportunity because it's an opportunity to express ourselves in other creative ways. So for our focus moment today, I want you to think of at least one thing that you have felt drawn to simply because of the way that it looks. It could be a painting, a plate, a chair, a box, a book, a cup, toothbrush, shirt, or any other thing that you chose to place in your home. Try to think of something man-made, not something found in nature, because today we are focusing on what is being communicated through the object by another, from one person to another person. Bonus points if you can think of an object that you purchased simply because of how it looked, when you could have purchased an alternative object that was just as functional for less money, but that object just didn't feel right. And after you think of this object, try to discern how that object makes you feel. You can label this feeling with words or even try to translate what it says about you that you are drawn to this object into words, but remember that any words you can apply will be a degree separated from the actual truth. Another interesting avenue of exploration is to try to remember how you felt when you purchased this item. Did you feel guilty for buying it simply for its visual appearance or simply because of its visual appearance? There is a really insidious idea out there that I don't have time to delve into today, which asserts that the visual aesthetics of an object are at odds with the practical function of that object. I think it's common for people to judge others and themselves for deciding to purchase something primarily because of the way that it looks. But I believe it's only natural to adorn yourself and your home in a way that communicates your values. It doesn't make you frivolous. It doesn't make you vain. It doesn't make you a show-off. It means that you can connect with your own identity on a deeper level than words, and you have an innate desire, just as I believe every human does, to communicate your true self. Because only in sharing who we really are can we make meaningful connections. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I will speak with you again tomorrow.